Hello, I'm Janita Branch, the founder of Purpose for a Purpose. And if you've ever watched the Casual Conversation video, then you know I do not typically do introductions like this, but I wanted to kind of explain why this one's going to be a little different. See what had happened was we had a Teddy Riley moment on Facebook Live. We had some technical difficulties, and I wanted to make sure that when you're watching this, you're going to see it's on Facebook Live. And then, when things happen, you can't plan for everything, but when they happen, you roll with it and you find a way to work through it. And that's what we did. And so we went from Facebook to Zoom. And even towards the end of Zoom, there were some little bitty issues, but we pushed through it because we believed that what we had to say was going to be helpful to somebody. And so it was important for us to make sure that we got the message out, that we continued this conversation. And so I invite you to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation, take notes if you hear something that's good that you want to remember or share with somebody. At the end, we definitely give some resources for you on this journey of parenting, whether it's motherhood, maybe it's fatherhood, maybe it's a grandparent, helping raise grandchildren. But whatever it is, there's something in this conversation for you. I really believe that. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And until next time, bye bye. Joining us for Casual Conversations. My name is Janita Branch, and I have Pastor Susan Riley joining me today from O'Reilly, joining me from the Rock KC. Is it Kansas City, Missouri? Is it Platte City?
It's Missouri. It's Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, I was wondering, but I was like, I don't really know. But Kansas City, Missouri, and we are talking about motherhood today. I thought that would be a good topic, kind of coming off of Mother's Day. But motherhood in general, I think, is just a good topic to talk about. You just can't go wrong talking about it. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad. It's always good to see your face.
Good to be here. It's so good to see you. We love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too. So we're going to kind of start the conversation, just kind of talking about motherhood. I was thinking about this today, actually, because I had shared with you previously that this is my kid's last day of school.
Right.
And it's been a challenge trying to just find balance between, what I would normally be doing during the day. So like working from home or just life in general, but then now trying to find balance with distance learning. And it gets tough because the struggle that I have is finding time for myself, because my kids are with me all the time. It's hard to get a break. I'm used to them kind of going and being off by themselves. So first, let's just talk about just self-care. Let's go there. Why is that so important as a wife, as a mother?
Sure.
Why is that important?
Yeah, I think self-care is vitally important, because if we're not good, then no one's really going to be good around us. I mean, as far as just being healthy in our bodies, the thing is, we're made up of three parts: spirit, soul, and body. And those three things all work together. And it's just so important that we are doing things for ourselves so that we're healthy, so that when we are in it, we're in interesting times right now. I mean, this is a very interesting time where you're doing things you've not had to do before. Like your children go, and then
I think it's the feedback. You're fine.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I'm hearing somebody talk, but I'm not sure.
It's you.
Oh, it's me.
It was feedback. You're good. You're fine.
Okay. If we're going to go the distance, we've got to be able to set boundaries and take care of ourselves. And one of the things that I found for me, and I'm a mother, but I'm also a Mimi now too. Yes. So I'm kind of looking back at things that worked out, and friends were huge for me. And that's one of the things that really built something into my life, finding good friends and just spending time with them, that it built something inside of me. And
Okay.
walking, finding things, doing something that you enjoy doing, even if it's just for a short amount of time. Like
Okay.
I'm seeing now, kids, families are out, they're walking,
Mm-hmm.
they're cycling, they're all kinds of things. People are getting really creative because they've been
Right.
homebound. But
Yeah.
even under normal circumstances, it's just important as moms that we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of those around us, of our children and even our husbands. Because we wear a lot of hats, we spin a lot of plates, and there's a lot of things that are constantly calling to us. And
Mm-hmm.
I find that it's not just one thing. It's like you're spinning 10 or 15 plates at a time. And so if we're not good, if we're not healthy, then it does, it just creates an atmosphere that I don't believe any of us want to live in. And
Yeah,
I
that's
believe that's
true.
why it's so important.
Yeah, so I struggle with feeling guilty.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause Will would say, why don't you go get your nails done? Or why don't you go do this? And I would feel bad, like leaving the house, because I'm like, but there's so much to do, and you guys need me. And I've
Right.
heard like other people share the same thing. Like they just feel there's something that they just feel bad. They feel there's just a guilt there. And I don't know, like, how do you really overcome that? Is it having accountability? I mean, someone that your husband just has to push you out the house. Like, how can we deal with that guilt that we might feel?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I felt that way
Yeah.
because I was with my children a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess I did a little bit, like if I would put them in like mom stay out or something like that. But actually
Mm-hmm.
what I found is that when I did those things, I could not wait to pick them up. I could not wait to get back, with them,
Yeah.
connect with them. And so I don't think that I felt necessarily guilty,
Okay.
and especially having the gift of your husband saying, go do something,
Yeah.
go. Because I can remember when my children were really young, my husband worked 7 days a week. He didn't even have a day off.
Yeah.
And there would be times where I woke up with them and I went to bed with them. And it
Mm.
was just a full on day. And I just remember that those times when I could get away and I could get out, I don't know that I felt guilty. So I'm telling you, girls, take the guilt off.
Right.
Take it off. Really,
Right.
we need that. We need to,
Yeah.
we're not called to do everything. And I
Mm.
just believe that more is caught than taught, and our kids pick up if we're feeling
Mm.
resentful, if we're feeling like, I've had enough of you or whatever. And I just think that it's just a boundary that we put down, that mommy needs to go get her nails done.
Yeah.
And it builds something in you so that when you come back, you're refreshed. You've had
Mm-hmm.
this time away. And it's not like you're leaving for weeks at a time. It's
Right.
for a
Right.
couple of hours. And then
Mm-hmm.
the children they're excited to see you, and you're ready to see them and go back at it because you know what the
That's true.
battle is like.
Right. And I think now that you're saying that, I'm thinking it also, we're teaching our kids that it's okay too, that it's okay for them to step
Absolutely.
away, and that they don't always have to be there managing. Like it's okay to put something down, take a break and come back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know why I've never thought about that. But that's something that's
Well,
really
and I think too, even you are training your children that it's not all about them, and that you
important.
you are able to you give a lot, but then there are things that you have to do for you. And as they get older, and like I even see my daughter now because she's married with children of her own, and I see her practicing those things because that's
Okay.
what she saw me practicing.
Okay.
And
All right.
so, yeah, I just say take the guilt off. Don't feel guilty, and
Yeah.
because you can only do so much, right? We're not perfect. We don't have the whole thing
Mhm.
wired, and you have to take care of yourself.
That's true. Yeah. And I think, and so you mentioned community, like how you had
So
your
important.
girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, that is important. I think it's a struggle. Like, so I'm gonna use myself as an example
Sure.
because we move a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always like, always feel like I'm starting over. Like,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I got to find another group. I got to find my new tribe, and I
Right.
have, you have those people that you keep in contact with, but it's different,
Yeah.
having people like in person versus, I can pick up the phone and call. And so, I guess, for people from other military spouses, just kind of encouraging them to kind of make that one of the things you do on your list of,
Yeah.
because usually when we move, it's find a house, find a church, find a school, but also
Right.
find a tribe, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that is actually really important. Where did your community come from? Like, where did you find them?
Well, it's interesting because my story is that my husband and I met in Dallas and we moved after 10 months of being married to Kansas City. And so, and I worked full time and he worked full time, and we kind of met on the weekend sometimes because it was just a crazy existence for a while. And
Mhm.
I longed for friends. And I remember, kind of like you, with moving a lot, I drew from college friends, and I stayed in touch on the phone, and we didn't even have internet or, what technology. We didn't have anything like that back then. That's been a very long time ago. And I just always just remember feeling this thing in the bottom of my stomach, just like I just need people. And I was around people a lot because we were in a church. But as far as those women that you just kind of linked arms with, it takes time. And I have to tell you, watching you military wives, you and with you, Janita, when you came to Kansas City, I feel like you just stepped right into that and found kind of your
Yeah.
tribe. It took a while for me, and it was just a gift from God. Women started, which is kind of interesting, started moving into Kansas City from out of state, and all of a sudden we formed a Bible study. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start a Bible study. I've never led one before, but I'm going to lead one. And that's kind of how it started, and I'm still in relationship with some of those women. And it sounds crazy because I'm only 35, but that was
Right.
like
Hmm.
30 plus years ago. I mean, that was a long time. People are like going, yeah, right.
And your grandmother. I mean,
Yeah,
wow.
I'm a grandmother 35. That was, but honestly, it's not the easiest thing, and
Yeah.
women are funny. I find that women, we make each other stronger and better, but women come with baggage. And
Yeah.
some women have been hurt, by other women, or even as little girls, and they've got their defenses up and that kind of thing. And it is
Hmm.
something you just have to press through. And I find just being friendly and being kind is it opens doors, which is
Yeah.
amazing. But I read a book way back. It was called The Friendships of Women, and in chapter one, the very beginning of the chapter, it said that women that have friendships are better wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, on and on and on. And it is such a basic thing, but I think sometimes we don't really realize, and especially when you're moving and you have to
Yeah.
uproot and then plant and uproot and then plant. But it's vitally important
Yeah.
to the health, I believe, and the strength of who God's called us to be.
Right. And what was the name of the book again?
It's called The Friendships of Women by Dee Breston. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
will have
It's a
to look into
really
that.
good book.
Because actually we've been so the last maybe month or so I've been talking about friendships. So you bringing up friendships, I'm like, yeah, we should. I have to make sure I post that book because we've kind of, and there's another kind of talk that I do called Christ Coffee Conversations,
Uh-huh.
and we were talking about friendships and how no one really teaches us how to be friends. Like
Yeah,
when you're in school, like when you're in elementary school, you're friends because you see each other every day. But as an adult, it's just
it's
different.
hard.
Like they're not the same, and you got to navigate it. Yeah. And you mentioned, like just being hurt, having that hurt from past, friendships or being disappointed
Right.
or, unmet expectations. You
Hmm.
carry that with us and it does create a wall.
Yeah.
And it makes it tough. I know that for me, a moment of confession, like when we get to this point, because we're at the 12 month mark. And I'm like, oh, we only got 12 months. So I'm like really like focused. And I was like, I need to do better, like still remain open to meeting
Yeah.
people, because you just never know what those friendships are going to be. But there's a point in this cycle of moving where I kind of just get real focused on the next move, and I'm here, but I'm almost gone,
Yeah.
and so, I got to do better. So,
Well, I
yeah.
want to encourage. Yeah. Well, I mean, we all get there. I was just thinking when you're talking, we've been in Kansas City. Well, tomorrow is our 38th wedding anniversary. So we've been here. That's how I measure how
Oh,
long I've been here. We've been here 37 years, which sounds
okay.
crazy because I was never planning to be in the Midwest. I didn't even know where Kansas City was on the map. I had to look,
Oh,
but
wow.
I have this group of women that I've been really close friends with for a very, very long time. But just recently, a couple of new gals started kind of drawing me in, and even during this quarantine time, we've gotten together a couple times. So don't tell anybody that, but
I won't tell anybody.
yeah, please don't tell anybody that. But we've gotten together, and it's like adding so much life to me, and it's just kind of a breath of fresh air because I just
Hmm.
turned 61, and it's like I want to always have that posture that I'm open. I just want to be
Yeah.
open to whoever God brings, my way. And I think sometimes even as women, it can be like us four and no more,
Hmm.
just go ahead,
Yeah.
got it, I'm good, you know.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
and yet the beauty is it's not about us. It's like, okay, God, who do
Mhm.
you want me to minister to? Who do you
Yes.
want me to talk to? And the truth is, women are created for relationships. We're made up of emotions, even with all of our baggage. But the truth is people want to be loved and they want to be noticed. And
Hmm.
everybody has a story. And because my husband and I are in ministry, we're with all kinds of different people on a regular basis. But here's what I found I can sit down and have coffee with about anybody and have
Hmm.
some sort of connection. And there's always something there. And I just believe that we miss out on so much when I'm very task oriented. So when I'm busy and I'm doing all these other things and I'm
Hmm.
making time for my friends, I realize I'm missing out on a lot of things that God wants to do in me and also through me.
Mm. That's good. Yeah. I'm task oriented too.
Yeah.
I was talking to a girlfriend actually about this yesterday, and I was like, I wondered if there's anything wrong with scheduling like calls, like, like I need to call so and
No.
so on this day, like putting it in your calendar, does that take away from it? But that's kind of sometimes what I have to do. Like I have to make sure that I'm very intentional about reaching out, because otherwise I can go a long
Mhm.
period of time, and it'll be months, I'm like, man, I haven't reached out to so and so.
Right.
So yeah, being very intentional about our friendships is, I think, also very important, because we can get caught up in life, and before you know it, there's that disconnect. So
Mhm.
um, I totally understand, because I miss getting with my girlfriends. I miss that.
Yeah.
This quarantine shelter in place thing is not. I'm almost done.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
yeah.
With you. But let me just say this. For me personally, I'm extremely task oriented, and I do make my list and scheduling. But I've also been praying that God would use this time and
Mm.
just minister to some things to me, even in regard to just some things that when you're so busy you don't hear.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've just been asking God, give me ears to hear what it is you've been trying to say to me. and
Hmm.
and and honestly, one of the areas is that I am more proactive with my friends, because sometimes I can get into a place where, because they contact me, I just wait for them to contact me,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
not necessarily that I'm the one, leaning into them or contact. And so I just think that there's some things that God is, in me especially, speaking to me about being a good friend. And I would have said, oh, I'm a good friend and I have great friends. But
Yeah.
then I've had some time to really think about it and look back, and I'm going, I've probably have been pretty selfish in that way, just
Mm,
expecting them to contact me.
gotcha.
And so I
Okay.
think, yeah, it works both ways.
So kind of going from that, just the importance of, having a community, finding your tribe. I know exactly, you were talking about
Yeah,
how during
yeah,
this time, God has been kind of talking to you about just being proactive. Is there a delay?
yes, yeah, yeah, and actually not waiting for. Is there a delay? Oh no, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're going
So
to
do
work
you
through
want
it.
to try to do this again? Okay, okay,
Yeah, we're going to work through this. Yes, because this week, yeah.
okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Well, it kind of cuts in and out.
I don't know. It was fine before. I'm not sure.
Oh, it was perfect. Yeah, it was perfect. That's what I was concerned about with the weather, but the weather is like blue sky and sunshine and there's no problem in. But yeah, it was weird because they're going smoothly and then all of a sudden your mouth was moving and I couldn't hear anything. And
Yeah,
I checked the microphone, I did all that. And yeah.
yeah, I don't know either. Is it still choppy or is it still a delay?
There's a little bit of a delay, but it's not choppy right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can keep going. But
Okay.
so
Okay.
I was going to ask you about so motherhood, like being a mom. I mean, really being a wife, a mom. We, like you said, we wear a lot of different hats. But in that,
Sure.
sometimes we can feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's all that we are. Like we don't really. Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
people feel like that's just their life. Like, and I've heard many, many times. I didn't go to school. I didn't go and get a degree to do this. Like, and this be
Right.
everything. Um,
Right.
you mentioned, like you're a mom, but you're also, is it Mima? What do they call, what do they call you?
Mimi.
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 And so now
Yeah.
you're Mimi. Um, like, is it
Miles named me Mimi.
Mimi? I like that. And so we
Yeah.
can easily feel like this is all that there is. Like, that there's,
Mm-hmm.
like, how did you ever deal with that as a mother, and what advice would you give to people who feel like that right now, and that's in this season of their life?
Yeah, I think it goes back to just knowing who we are and knowing our identity. It's not. It's. I'm more keen to who am I as opposed to what I do.
Mm,
So what we do is we mother, we teach, we practice medicine, we do all those things, but that's not our identity. And I think that's what's hard, because a lot of times as women, that can feel like our identity without, do you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like, well, who are you? Well, and when you start naming all the things you are, it's like, okay, wait a minute, that's what you do, but who are you?
yeah,
And I think that having that answered having answering that helps. Who am I? I'm a daughter of God. I'm a daughter. I am a mother. But that's not necessarily how I identify myself. Do I love being a mother? I love it. Do I love being a Mimi? Absolutely love it. But we're also multi-layered. We have
mm,
so many components and so many parts of who we are. And I think that especially followers of Jesus, going back to who am I?
yeah,
I'm a woman who was created with purpose. I'm a woman that God says that He takes great delight in. That my worth is far above rubies. It's far above anything that we put value on. And so I think in some ways it almost belittles us when we just identify ourselves as what we do. Does that make sense?
It does.
Because we're so much more than what we do. And so I think it's important that we don't identify, yeah, that's what we do, but at the end of the day, if that's taken away, then have I lost my identity, or am I still the same person?
That's good.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. I don't have anything to add to that. I absolutely understand it. Makes sense. I kind of like I feel like that's kind of the place that a place that I've been in where it's just like, well, like you have to, like, me knowing who I am in Christ, like it's great, the title and, like you said, like the role, like the roles are roles, but your identity is another thing, and
right.
I do these things.
Right.
If I stop doing those things, I'm still me. I still am who God created
right.
me to be. And so just really
right.
understanding that and embracing that. I think that's going to really help somebody.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Well, and the truth is that, so I'm at the season of my life where I'm still a mother. I'm still, I still have things that, I obviously have relationship with my kids, but I'm not doing what I was doing 20 years ago or how, 30 years ago with them. Now we're peers. Now we're friends. I still wear the label of mother, but it doesn't identify. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
doesn't identify.
So kind of thinking about what you just said, it kind of goes back to the importance of like self-care. And finding like those things that I love to do, or that we love to do outside of our kids, because our kids get older, like right now, Zoe, she follows me around the house. She loves being around me. My kids still like to spend time with me, but they get older and they start having, and so it's like when they get older, I have to have my own interests. Like they can't be, all my attention can't, I don't know how to say this. I want to say that all my attention can't be on them. It should be, but I have to have my own interests, my own things that I find pleasure in. And so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that, there are women that put everything into their children and they raise their children. And then once their because really as healthy moms, we're training our children to be kicked out of the nest, in some respect. And so it's like, and then moms are just devastated because then they go, what now? And sometimes they lose their marriage over it because they've not built in and they've not invested in the relationship with their husband. And then all of a sudden they get to the end and the kids are going off to college and they're starting a whole new life. And then the mother is so attached to that she's like, wait a minute. And believe me, it's difficult. I cried my eyes out when both of my kids left. But I had to remind myself, this is what I've been training them for 18 years.
Yeah.
These were not projects of mine. These are people that I've invested my life into that were not going to stay a tiny baby or a toddler or a preteen. They were going to go off and one day, possibly be a dad, be a mother, and do something in the world way more hopefully than what I've done in my world. And that's what you want, for your kids. And so that's where you can't have your identity tied to them, because then you're holding on to their ankles going, don't go.
Right.
And they're going, I can't. And then they're like, I can't wait to get out of here.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so
that's why. Yeah.
For the woman that maybe realizes that she has made, like her whole world is her kids, she's investing everything. What would you tell her? Like, what should she start doing today to move away from that?
Yeah, I would encourage her to start figuring out what she likes to do, what it is that's life-giving to her, whether it's reading, painting, bicycling, playing tennis. I mean, you know, there's a thousand things that
Yeah.
you could, and those are things there. Just choose something that you enjoy doing and start investing in that. Last year, I wrote a whole list, and I actually did every single one of them but one. But I grew up as a tennis player, and I love playing tennis, but I don't have one friend who plays tennis.
Oh.
And so I just wrote down, I'm going to join a tennis club. Now, that's the only one thing I haven't done yet.
Okay.
But even when my kids were growing up, I played tennis a lot with a gal who back then played tennis.
Mm-hmm.
But I always had something else that I did. And, you know, some women will shriek at this, but I actually started going on girls' trips even when my children were young, and my husband was able to stay at home and be with them.
Yeah.
Whether it was a conference, it was going to the beach or whatever. Obviously not for long periods of time, but just cultivating the relationship of what fed me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like God smiles at that. I feel like he created us for relationship, and some of those friendships I still have today. Mm-hmm. And that started a long, long time ago.
That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. I need to,
but find something.
Yeah, find things. So I've never been a plant person. I kill them. I'm just not good. Not intentionally, on accident. But recently I have taken to plants outside, just like planting, just planting flowers. Mm-hmm. And starting a little garden.
Sure.
And I am so excited about these peppers that are coming in. Like every day I go outside and see like how big they are.
Oh, that's awesome.
It makes me so happy. I call it playing in the dirt. I just love playing in the dirt. And I just get my little head and I'm just, but I never thought that would be me. But but being in the house and just I just go outside. Like me going outside for 30 minutes is like my fresh air and just kind of taking a break. And so I love I go talk to him. I'm like, I never thought this would be me, but you never know. So I like making the list of, like maybe you try it and you don't like it, but at least you tried it, and you know that you don't like it.
Right.
So it's worth the effort to just try to make a list and try some stuff. I think that's actually a really good, a practical thing.
Yeah. Just to have something that you're focusing on other than just the children. And because the children don't need that either. This mama bear, and I was a mama bear. I mean, I would be what you would have called an attached parent versus a detached parent. Back when I was raising kids, those were kind of buzzwords, but I always had something. Like I always was, I was with a group of women that we did lunch, or we celebrated birthdays, or, a number of things, so that I had things that filled me as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of that self-care, where when we're so depleted, it doesn't do anybody any good. Our husbands, our children, when it's like living out of a dry well. Because all we're doing is just getting up and giving, and you've got to. And let me just say this: the most important thing is getting into the presence of the Lord and letting Him fill us up. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the most important, basic thing that we do. Yeah. It says in the Word that in His presence there's fullness of joy and life forevermore. Yeah. And so that's number one. That's just a given. But I felt like I needed to say that.
Yeah, I think that's important, because I think it may be, it's a given, but I think we need to hear it. Like sometimes we have to be reminded, like, that's still important, like that's still something, like that's the foundation, like that's where we start. So I think that it's definitely mentioning. Let me see. I wanted to ask, because kind of going to the community, having community, sometimes being in community with other women, it's easy to get caught up in the comparison of things. Yeah. Like how they're living their life, how they're raising their kids. But then it can also be a slippery slope, because we can also go to the other side and be very judgmental
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of want to talk about the whole idea of comparison. I know Pinterest, I joke and like, I don't have a Pinterest house. I don't do Pinterest lunches. I just, we live in my house. I make, but we can, like, there's so much information out there, of how to
Yeah.
be a quote unquote good mom, a good
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or perfect. And so we can get caught up in that. How do you filter, how can we filter through that to really just get back to being our authentic self? Like, and that's different for everybody, but we can be
Right.
overwhelmed with so much
Right.
information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you guys, I mean, especially young moms, you've got so many things that are just coming at you constantly, especially with social media. I did not have that, but I think just living in a place of truth. That number one, that we wanna be obedient and live before the face of God, and first please Him. And then understand that we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. And, even like Pinterest, or even Instagram, which I really like Instagram, it's like you have to understand those are snippets, those are highlights, that's not what they look like when they get up in the morning, after they've gone for a run,
Right.
all those kind of things. And I think, Janita, part of it comes with age. So I was trying to get into my head about comparison, because you've heard, I think it was President Theodore Roosevelt who said that comparison is the way it steals our joy, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that can be true, or you can turn it and go, you know what? I'm doing life with, bring it down to your friends. I'm doing life with these people. We're all different. And if we were all the same, then we wouldn't be necessary. If we all look the same, if we all talk the same, if we all came from the same place, and if we all had the same gifts and abilities. And so one of the things that I did is, and I talked about this Bible study earlier, I was in this Bible study with several women who really had it going. I mean, they could set a table like nobody else. They were very hospitable. I mean, very artistic, very creative. One gal had worked in the top firm in DC, as far as a design firm, and just some really great women. And what I had to determine was, you know what? We all have gifts and talents and abilities that God put inside of us. And those gifts and talents and abilities are really to bless our world and bless those around us. And so what I started trying to do was looking at my friends and taking and learning from them, learning what they had. And today I actually entertain differently than I did back then because of one specific friend, because she was military. Her husband was a pilot, and he had gone to one of the academies. And so that was just, and she didn't grow up with that, but she had a world of expertise. And I started just watching her, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna learn from her, because I loved her. But then you've got the whole side of, well, you parent differently, and you do this differently, and I don't know what I think. And one of the things that I started doing years ago is holding people loosely. And I tell this to our staff a lot, even with our church family, is that we hold people loosely. We're not responsible for them. We're responsible for us. My heart, my responsibility. And, in Proverbs 4:23, it says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. And so building some filters in our soul that, you know what, and believe me, this preaches by the mile and lives by the inch. I mean, it's something that we have to constantly work on, but it's something I've tried to live out, that I want to learn from you. I want to learn from my friends, and then tweak things and do things better. But then when they're at a whole nother level, I just let them be them, and I'm going to be me. Right? I've got friends. I love throwing parties, and you're from Jacksonville, right? Are you from Did you grow up in Jacksonville, Florida? And I grew up in South Florida, and I love Southern, and I love parties and all that kind of thing. And I don't have many friends that enjoy all that kind of thing. So I do that. That's what I do. I put on parties or dinner parties or whatever. And then I appreciate what they bring to my world, and try not to. And I'll say this, I think some of it comes with age.
Okay.
Because I'm not in the midst. It's kind of like it used to be like when you were 20, you were trying to prove yourself, and then 30, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and then 40 and 50. And I'm 61. And I'm like, you know what? I'm at an age now where I just kind of sometimes, hopefully in wisdom, say what I think. And I'm not a fan of masks. I'm not a fan of, and people who know me well know where I stand on all this. And hopefully I'm not being obstinate or whatever, but I've gotten to a place where now I'm going to just speak the truth, and but I've learned some things.
Right.
And so that's what I'm sharing today has come out of a long amount, lot of years of doing life with people, and having conflict, loving people enough to confront them, loving enough to press into the conflict, to drill down and work things out, and not just take my marbles and go home and, you know what I mean? And be upset and offended and all that kind of thing. But I think we hold people loosely, and we try to appreciate what they bring to the world. And, the scripture says, which is a principle, we reap what we sow. And if we sow that attitude, I have found that I have reaped that from others.
Yeah. I think that is beautiful. I've never ever heard that, the way that you explain, like looking at what our friends bring, like their strengths and trying to learn from them. I don't think I've ever heard, I've never heard that before. But it makes sense. And it's kind of like, because I think my friends are wonderful. I think that I can identify like the strengths and, like how we're so different and what makes us unique and what they're good. And so instead of looking at it as, they are better than me. They're not better, they're better at that than I am. And that's okay, because I have my strength, but trying to, if that's something that I really want to learn, but also being vulnerable enough, right, to say, hey, or open enough to say, can you teach me? Or will you, and asking questions, and not trying to, because sometimes I think, like you mentioned masks, and I think that we can wear the mask and we want to portray that we have it all together, that we have it figured out, and we're so smart. But to be like, I don't know a lot about this, and being willing to be open about that is important. But it could be very valuable. So I think that that's really very helpful. And when you talked about, kind of living an open-handed life, not trying to hold on so tight. I thought about our kids, because, they were our kids, and I love my kids, and I want to not, in a sense, sometimes you do want to control them. You want to try to get them to do, what you want to do, how you want them to do it. And we worry about certain things. And I was thinking about this earlier today, kind of coming into the talk, but that our kids are given to us from God. Like they're a gift from God. They really belong to Him. He's just kind of he's honored, giving us the privilege and the honor of raising them, but they're His. And I think that sometimes that's really tough to do though, as a parent, right? Like, just kind of letting go sometimes, is that something, I don't know, like, did you ever struggle with that, as a mom, like really, like there being situations where you just kind of had to, like let go and just, be like, God, I need you to, step in, or, anything like that?
Oh, no, never. I was not controlling at all.
I knew you wouldn't be.
I'm kidding big time. Because, sometimes what we do is we act out of what was modeled for us. And my mother had some control issues. And what I found is that, and I probably noticed it even more so since my children are grown. Sometimes I cringe, but especially like we had boundaries and all those kind of things, but especially in high school, there were times where I just wanted to go outside and beat my chest. I mean, I was trying to control some situations, and the tighter I got, the tighter the grip, the more they ran in the other direction. And it really created some issues.
Yeah.
And here I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing, right? But I will tell you what it led me to do, and that I think probably saved my children. One of the things that I did, and I'm talking high school and college,
okay,
is I did a lot of praying. Okay. And here's what happened. Every time I would go to God sincerely and say, Lord, I am so sorry. Please help me with this. Things would get better every single time. And you know the story today. Our kids are both on staff with us. I mean, they both work with us, which is a miracle of God, never dreaming that our son would go into ministry. We did not raise our children. We raised them to be Christians, not act like Christians. That's what we told them constantly. And we definitely did not raise them to go into ministry just because their dad was in ministry, or because, you know, their mom and dad were in ministry. But honestly, through prayer and fasting, some of that was broken in my life. But yeah, I tried to hold on. I mean, they both had someone they were dating that I did not care for, that I was trying to in every way control. And what it did was it hurt me. It hurt me. It hurt my relationship with my son and my daughter, and it hurt me. Okay. And even thinking, wow, I should be above this. I'm a Christian. I should not. But sometimes when it comes to your kids, you can go to places that you never thought possible.
Right.
And I'm sure there were a couple people who wondered if I was really a Christian. But it was just that hold of, I knew that I had been praying all their life for their spouses, for their destinies, for their profession, whatever. And I just knew that one relationship could turn things. And that's all I could see. All I could see was in the natural. But here's the truth. God loves our children more than we do.
Yeah.
And that goes back to holding them loosely. Yeah. And that's what I had to be reminded. And it's, I'll kind of end that with this topic with this, but there's a story where Moses is being put into the basket into the Nile River because, you know, Pharaoh has called all of the young boys to be killed. And I can't imagine being the mother of Moses, but Jochebed, what she did was she put Moses in that basket, and she put him in that river, put the basket in the river. And here's what she did. She relinquished him to God. She did not give up on him. She gave him up. And so we can do that on a regular basis. And that's what I did. I'm like, God, I'm putting Jonathan in that basket, and I'm relinquishing him to you. And I did it with Ashley as well, and said, you know, and there's so many things about that story. I cannot even begin to imagine this beautiful baby boy. Yeah. And giving it, but look what God did. And so I think it's a principle that we are stewarding them. They've been given to us as gifts, but we relinquish them ultimately to God.
That's good. We're relinquishing them, but we're not, not giving up on, or
we're not giving up on them. We're giving them up.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's what relinquish is. Relinquishing is to give up, and it's kind of like raising our hands in surrender. Okay, God, I'm giving him up.
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that with that story, but you know, that's why you are who you are. And I mean, you mentioned, I'm thinking about other things that you recently said, about how, like, even just like in this season of your life, you just kind of you're comfortable with who you are. Like, you know who you are, you know? And so I think you're right. Like, for younger parents, there is it's a struggle, especially with social media and all of that, to just kind of keep up with the Joneses. You know, we hide ourselves. We aren't comfortable. So it kind of goes back to the identity piece. Like when you know who you are, you can be comfortable, you know, in community with other people. I think you just navigate life differently. You show up differently. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally, totally. But I think that going back to the heart of every person, they want to be two things: loved and accepted.
Yeah.
And so having that understanding, even when people look a certain way or act a certain way, you know, sometimes people act a certain way and there's deep insecurity in them. We look at the outside, but on the inside, there's so much more going on. And I think that if we can take this position of, I'm just going to hold you loosely, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to accept you. There are doors that will open that look like they're completely bolted up, people's hearts that will open up just by a kind word, by a smile. I mean, you could do it as an experiment. You know, you just smile at somebody and all of a sudden it changes the atmosphere. And that's the beauty as believers. We have literally the power to change the atmosphere that we live in and that we bring. We can change the environment around us.
That's true.
And I see it every day. I see it at Starbucks. I see it, you know, the places that I go. But just being kind to people, and sometimes, you know, because I am task oriented, I have to think consciously. Okay, be personable, be loving. I have to think that sometimes if I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
But when I do, it's like people just light up. And I think that, again, just note, and I think you learn that as time goes on. Like I said, at my age, I've seen things that I wish I would have known when I was younger, because I think people do put on masks and they do try to be somebody and to measure up and all those kind of things. And people really, they just want the real. They just want the authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And here we are trying to be somebody that, you know, maybe we are to a degree, or maybe we're not at all, or whatever. We're just trying to be accepted. And it's just always the basics. It's just smiling, loving, kindness. Those kind of things go a long, long way.
Yeah, that I agree. And I think too that part of that is accepting yourself. Like if I don't really accept who I am, then I'm going to struggle. Like I'm going to struggle, you know, in my relationships with other people, but because I'm also looking for them to do for me what I am, you know, I'm struggling to do it for myself. So, it's definitely an internal, external thing for sure. So with you talked about high school and college, that being a time that you really were praying a lot. Were those seasons, were those the toughest for you? As parenting?
Yeah, I would say high school was the toughest for me. My kids had gone to private school through 8th grade, and then they went into high school. The beauty is, you know, Jonathan, our son, he played football and basketball, and so he tried out for all those things before he went in. So he had it. Here's what our motto was: keep them tired and keep them busy and tired. That's what we did, so they wouldn't have time to get into trouble.
Gotcha.
And so our kids, Ashley danced, she cheered, she was busy. Jonathan, the same thing. So that helped a lot going into a brand new school where they didn't know anybody necessarily. But it also brought a lot of things into our world that we had not dealt with before, because we were in this Christian school where we knew everybody. And it was actually our Christian school. And so our kids were known, we were known, you know, the whole bit. And then we're going into the situation where people had very different values. You know, the girls were, I mean, you just know you've got these teenage girls and they wanted, you know, my son, and I'm thinking, oh no, you didn't.
Right.
And, you know, just kind of trying to mark my territory and all that kind of thing. And so, but the truth is, if I would have been more measured, the experience for me would have been different. Because what I did was I reacted, and I should have responded, but I reacted.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just some things that, as I look back now, I mean, it was not a terrible experience, but for me, I was just constantly kind of just, you know, my insides were just churning on a regular basis because of some things that I let really affect me.
Gotcha.
And so as I look back, I would say, yeah, high school was definitely, college was not, college was good.
Okay.
But high school was, but I had learned, and I'd always prayed for my children, but I had learned in high school, oh my goodness, I've got to pray, and I've got to get victory for myself, or I'm going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
and I mean, literally. And so that's when, so then I just practiced that all the way through college. And there were some difficult times in college, some things, you know, times where I just wasn't sure. Jonathan went into a fraternity, and my first thought was, I didn't raise you for this. And when we moved him in and saw the frat house, I'm like once again, I did not raise him for, you know, God. But the beauty is God used it. The beauty is he you know, went to the university, and God used it, and he literally turned his life around when he was in the university. It was incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's an unbelievable, you know, unbelievable story. And he called me his senior year. I was in my office, and the one thing you don't want to ever hear from your adult son is, Mom, are you sitting down? Because then you go to the, you know, you go, oh no, wait, things were good. And then he begins to tell me about how he's felt called into ministry even as a young boy. Wow. And you could have knocked me over with a feather, but he was, you know, that the turning point was he was away at college. So to me, that's just the grace of God completely.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that story. Maternity? No. I know. Yes. Well, we are definitely not in the high school. We're not there yet. And I think, of course, you know, I'm limited because we're only in elementary school. So I know that, I feel like every you know, every age comes with its own stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm just like, Elijah just turned 11, and I'm like, who are you? Like, I don't, you know, like, I don't recognize. And so I'm adjusting just to that. You know, there's always an adjustment to parenting, but definitely I feel like.
No, that's true. Every season has its own things that go along with it. And junior high is just awkward all the way around.
Yeah.
Because they're developing, all these physical changes are taking place. They're awkward. Just everything about it. And so that's where you just have to be consistent and be loving. Okay. You know. Yeah.
Good advice, because I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's an awkward stage, I think, for everybody.
Indeed. Well, as we wrap up, are there any, like, where you have any recommendations for, you know, books, or even, you know, maybe there's blogs, any resources, you know, that would be helpful for moms?
So I was thinking about this, and some of the books that we used that are still out there. One of the books that we loved was The Key to Your Child's Heart by Gary Smalley. Okay. And that it's been around a while, but when I started reading it, we even took our kids away for the weekend and just went through some things. It was like writing up a contract, and we all just kind of agreed on some things, and this is who we are as a family, and it was late elementary, early junior high days. Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp is a really good one. Just all about what it looks like to love your child, to nurture and to care for your children. Hold Me While You Let Me Go would be one for you in the next couple of years. It's by Rich Wilkerson, not Rich Jr., but his dad. Okay. It was a great book to prepare for them as they were getting older, in high school, even junior high, high school, and then leaving home. Okay. That was a great book for us. Dare to Discipline by James Dobson. That's an oldie, but a really good one. And then I would say anything by Kevin Leman, Dr. Kevin Leman,
Okay.
is fantastic. And one of the books I really liked was Making Children Mind Without Losing Yours. And the thing is, he's a doctor, but he's hilarious. He's really, really funny. And I would say to every mother, learn to laugh. Just make laughing a part of your, try to laugh every single day. I have a whole nother story. We don't have time for that. Maybe another time. But that's one of the things that I learned when my kids were in high school, is that I had to start laughing. Because laughter does so many things for our physical body. I mean, God intentionally built that into us to laugh, to heal. When we laugh, we heal. And it opens up our brain. It brings oxygen to our brain. It does all kinds of things to us physically that will help us get through some of the harder seasons of life, because every age, like you said, every age has things that you go through, but learning to laugh is a huge part of raising children.
Well, good.
These are just a couple of books that I would recommend.
Okay, and I will make sure when we share it on Facebook to type out the book so people can they'll be able to just access it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, any last words that you want to give or encouragement before we kind of officially wrap it up?
Yeah, the only thing that is that this goes back to a little bit of just balance, living kind of in balance, is that we're all made up of three parts: spirit, soul, and body. And those three things are working together. It's called congruency. And God wants us to live in congruency. And so, sometimes we give so much attention to the physical, and we don't really, take a look at, okay, what is our spiritual, being? What's going on? So vitally important that those working together and that they're healthy.
Gotcha.
And it's an ongoing process, but we talked about the physical: exercising, moving, clearing your brain. We're the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we're responsible with how we steward our physical bodies, but our soul is extremely important. I already talked about guarding our heart with all diligence, intelligence to our soul, making sure that we're building our capacity, that we're able to go to those places of hurt and pain, and allowing God to heal that. The beauty is the Holy Spirit's our friend. He's our helper. He's our comforter. He's like, it's as if we have a gold mine underneath us that we don't access the way that we should. And he wants to help us in every situation that we have. And so I just encourage everyone to feed your soul, feed your spirit, feed your physical body, because and God wants us to grow up, not just grow old.
That's good.
And live under the grace of God in a beautiful way.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Thank you so much.
So that's what I would leave you with. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I love seeing your beautiful face.
Yes, same here. Will was like, you might need to call her, because I know when you see her, I'm gonna behave. But it's so good to see you. I was like, I'm gonna keep it together. Don't worry. But I look forward to this. Hopefully we get to come see you in person, you and Pastor Philip, and spend time with you all and see the church and just see everybody. Y'all are like,
we have bedrooms.
I know.
Yeah. Well, we feel the same way, and we have room for you. So come see us.
We will. And thank you so much for doing this and spending some time with me and being patient through all the technical difficulties. But we'll have to do something else again. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, go kiss your kids for me and have a great evening.
I will. You too. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye bye.